Welcome to Just Listen Books channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification. The Lean Startup by Eric Ries is a pivotal book in the entrepreneurship and business strategy domain, outlining an approach to developing and managing startups in a more efficient, lean way. It advocates for rapid, iterative product releases to test market assumptions and uses customer feedback to evolve products or services much faster. Ries introduces the concept of the lean startup methodology, which applies lean thinking to the process of innovation. This approach values customer feedback over intuition and flexible product development over traditional planning. Chapter 1. Start. In this chapter, the author lays the foundational concepts of the lean startup methodology by emphasizing the importance of starting with a minimal viable product, MVP. This approach is pivotal for startups and any organization looking to innovate or launch new products. Here's a detailed look at the key points covered in this chapter. The essence of the MVP. Definition of MVP. The MVP is defined as the simplest version of the product that allows the team to start the learning process as quickly as possible. It is not necessarily a lesser product, but the most basic version that can be released to test fundamental business hypotheses. Purpose of the MVP. The primary goal of the MVP is to test and validate the startup's fundamental business hypotheses with minimal resources. It's about learning what customers truly need and want, which can significantly differ from the initial assumptions. The role of MVP in the lean startup. Feedback loop. Acceleration. The MVP is central to creating the shortest possible feedback loop with customers, enabling quick adjustments based on actual data rather than assumptions. Reducing waste. By focusing on the MVP, startups can avoid building features or products that no one wants, thus significantly reducing wasted time, resources, and effort. Focusing on learning. The process revolves around learning about customer preferences and market demands. Every iteration of the MVP is aimed at answering specific questions and hypotheses about the business model and customer needs. Implementing the MVP. Identifying core hypotheses. Startups must identify their core business hypotheses that need validation. These are critical assumptions that underlie the business model's success. Building the MVP. The MVP should be designed to test these core hypotheses in the most straightforward and fastest manner. This involves stripping down the product to its essentials. Engaging. Early adopters. Early adopters play a crucial role in MVP testing. They are more forgiving, more likely to give feedback, and can provide insights that are vital for refining the product. Learning from the MVP. Validated learning. The objective is to achieve validated learning, a process of demonstrating empirically that a team has discovered valuable truths about a startup's present and future business prospects. Iterate or pivot. Based on the feedback and data gathered from the MVP, startups decide whether to iterate on the product, making small adjustments and improvements, or pivot, making a significant change in strategy. Challenges and considerations. Emotional challenges. Embracing the MVP approach can be challenging, as it often requires letting go of perfecting the product before launch. Market understanding. A deep understanding of the target market and customer is crucial for designing an effective MVP. Chapter 1 of the Lean Startup effectively sets the stage for the entire methodology by highlighting the critical importance of the MVP. It is not just about building a product, but about building the right product that meets market demands and customer needs. This chapter serves as a call to action for startups to embrace validated learning, reduce waste, and significantly improve their chances of success in uncertain markets. Chapter 2. Define. In this chapter, the author provides a foundational definition of a startup, which is central to understanding the entire lean startup methodology. This chapter broadens the application of lean startup principles beyond what many might traditionally consider a startup, encompassing a wide range of organizations and projects. Below are the detailed insights from this chapter. Defining a startup. Broad definition. Ries defines a startup as any organization dedicated to creating something new under conditions of extreme uncertainty. This definition is intentionally broad, covering not only Silicon Valley tech companies but also innovative projects within large corporations, nonprofits, and other sectors. Core challenge. The core challenge for startups, according to Ries, is navigating the uncertainty of what customers really want and will pay for. This uncertainty isn't limited to product development, but extends to all aspects of the business model. The goal of a startup. Finding the right thing to build. The primary goal of a startup, as Ries puts it, is to figure out the right thing to build, the thing that customers want and will pay for, as quickly as possible. The emphasis here is on speed and efficiency in validating business hypotheses. Validated learning. The process of figuring this out is called validated learning, which is a systematic approach to demonstrating clear progress in the face of uncertainty. It involves testing hypotheses about the business model, product, and market. The lean startup approach. Systematic uncertainty reduction. Ries introduces the lean startup methodology as a systematic, scientific approach for reducing uncertainty and risk in a startup. This approach is based on principles from lean manufacturing, adapted for the context of innovation and startups. Build, measure, learn. Loop. A core component of the lean startup approach is the build, measure, learn feedback loop, where startups quickly build minimal versions of their product ideas, MVPs, measure how customers react, and learn whether to pivot or persevere in their current direction. Application beyond tech startups. Versatile applicability. Ries emphasizes that the principles of the lean startup methodology apply not just to tech startups, but to any project or organization that operates under conditions of uncertainty. This includes new product lines within established companies, services, and even governmental and nonprofit initiatives. Adaptation to various industries. The lean startup approach is adaptable to different industries and challenges, from software to physical products, and from initial product development to scaling an established business. Challenges of definition. Misconceptions about startups. Ries addresses common misconceptions that equate startups solely with technology or with young companies seeking rapid growth at all costs. Instead, he reiterates that the essence of a startup is about dealing with uncertainty in creating new value. Chapter 2. Define sets a foundational understanding of what constitutes a startup within the context of the lean startup methodology. By broadening the definition and focusing on the inherent uncertainty and the goal of validated learning, Ries positions the lean startup approach as a universal framework for innovation. This chapter underlines the importance of quickly learning what customers truly value, thereby enabling startups and innovative projects of all kinds to achieve success more efficiently and effectively. Chapter 3. Learn. This chapter dives into the core philosophy underpinning the entire methodology, validated learning. This concept shifts the focus from traditional metrics of success, like hitting revenue or product development milestones, to learning as the primary metric of progress. This chapter emphasizes how startups can systematically learn what their customers truly want and how to build sustainable businesses around those insights. Here's a detailed exploration of the chapter's key points. The concept of validated learning. Validated learning. Defined. Ries introduces validated learning as a rigorous empirical process through which startups can measure their progress. It's about learning what customers really need and proving that a business can build a sustainable product around those needs. Counterintuitive nature. The idea is somewhat counterintuitive because it suggests that learning and understanding the customer can be more valuable than traditional metrics of success, such as sales or user growth, in the early stages of a startup. The importance of validated learning. Reducing waste. By focusing on learning rather than just building and selling, startups can reduce waste, spending resources on products and features that no one wants. Strategic direction. Validated learning helps startups make informed decisions about their strategic direction, including when to pivot, change course, and when to persevere on the current path. How to achieve validated learning. Build, measure, learn. Loop. This feedback loop is at the heart of validated learning. Startups build minimal viable products, MVPs, to test their hypotheses about the market and customers, measure how customers react to these MVPs, and learn whether their hypotheses were correct. Actionable metrics versus vanity metrics. Ries emphasizes the difference between actionable metrics, which can guide decision-making, and vanity metrics, which might look good on paper but don't actually inform strategy. Validated learning relies on actionable metrics. Pivoting or persevering. Based on what startups learn from their experiments, they can decide whether to pivot, make a fundamental change to their strategy, or persevere, continue with their current strategy. This decision-making process is informed by validated learning about what customers want. Challenges of implementing validated learning. Cultural challenges. Implementing a focus on validated learning can be challenging within cultures that value execution based on predetermined plans. It requires a cultural shift towards valuing learning and flexibility. Measuring learning. Another challenge is developing systems to measure learning effectively. This often requires creating new metrics that are not traditionally used in business. Examples and case studies. Throughout the chapter, Ries provides examples and case studies of startups that have successfully applied validated learning. These stories illustrate how real companies have used MVPs, actionable metrics, and persevere decisions to build products that customers truly want. Chapter 3 of The Lean Startup elevates the concept of learning from an incidental byproduct of the startup process to its central objective. Validated learning is presented as the most effective way to navigate the uncertainty that startups face, enabling them to create products and services that meet real customer needs and to build sustainable businesses. This chapter challenges traditional notions of progress and success, advocating for a more scientific, learning-oriented approach to entrepreneurship. Chapter 4. Experiment. This chapter delves deeper into the operational backbone of the lean startup methodology, the build, measure, learn feedback loop. Eric Ries positions this loop as not just a strategy, but as a systematic experimental process through which startups can effectively innovate and adapt to meet customer needs. This chapter breaks down each component of the loop, emphasizing its role in validating business hypotheses and guiding startups towards success. Here's a more detailed overview. The build, measure, learn feedback loop. Foundational concept. The build, measure, learn loop is introduced as the fundamental process through which startups turn ideas into products, measure how customers respond, and then learn whether to pivot or persevere. Rapid iteration. The emphasis is on speed through rapid iterations, with the goal of minimizing the total time through the loop. This agility allows startups to quickly adjust to customer feedback and market demands. Starting with a hypothesis. Hypothesis-driven development. Ries emphasizes that each cycle of the loop should start with a hypothesis that makes predictions about how customers will react. This hypothesis needs to be testable and should be based on the core assumptions underlying the startup's business model. Example: hypotheses. These can range from assumptions about customer behavior, e.g., customers will use a feature daily, to business viability, e.g., a certain customer acquisition cost is sustainable. Building the MVP. Purpose of the MVP. The minimal viable product, MVP, is presented as the simplest way to start the learning process. It's the build part of the loop, designed to test the hypothesis with minimal effort and resources. Iterative nature. The MVP is not seen as a one-off, but as part of an iterative process where each version is aimed at testing specific hypotheses. Measuring customer response. Actionable metrics. The measure phase involves using actionable metrics to assess how customers actually behave in response to the MVP, as opposed to vanity metrics that might look good on paper, but don't inform decisions. Learning from data. Ries stresses the importance of interpreting the data correctly, warning against common pitfalls like confirmation bias. The goal is to gain insights that can guide the next steps. Learning and adjusting direction. Validated learning. The learning phase is about drawing conclusions from the experiment and making informed decisions. This could mean iterating on the MVP to improve it, or pivoting to explore a new direction based on what was learned. Feedback loop as an ongoing process. Ries makes it clear that the build, measure, learn loop is not a one-time process, but an ongoing cycle of refinement and exploration, driving towards a product-market fit. Challenges and solutions. Challenge of moving quickly. One challenge highlighted is the temptation to build too much before testing hypotheses, which can slow down learning. Ries advocates for focusing on speed and simplicity. Cultural challenges. Another challenge is creating a culture that values learning and is comfortable with uncertainty. Ries suggests embedding the build, measure, learn loop into the company's DNA. Chapter 4 of The Lean Startup crystallizes the experimental heart of the methodology, illustrating how startups can use the build, measure, learn feedback loop to systematically test assumptions, learn from customers, and adapt their strategies accordingly. This process transforms the way startups develop products, engage with customers, and ultimately, how they define success. Through this lens, startups are seen not just as businesses trying to make a profit, but as ongoing experiments seeking to discover how to create value in an uncertain world. Chapter 5. Leap. This chapter addresses a pivotal moment in the journey of startups, the initial leap of faith into the unknown, where the foundational vision of the startup is set against the backdrop of extreme uncertainty. Eric Ries elaborates on the crucial early decisions that startups must make, highlighting the inherent assumptions in their visions and the necessity of systematically testing these assumptions to mitigate risk and guide the startup toward success. Here's a more detailed breakdown: the leap of faith. Foundational assumptions. The chapter begins by identifying the leap of faith as the assumptions that are so fundamental, they must be true for the startup's business model to succeed. These include the value hypothesis, the product or service will deliver value to customers, and the growth hypothesis, the business will grow through either word of mouth, as a side effect of product usage, through advertising, or through repeat purchase or use. Embracing uncertainty. Startups are encouraged to explicitly identify and articulate these assumptions, acknowledging the leap of faith they are making. This clarity is the first step towards validating their business model. Systematic testing of assumptions. Value hypothesis. Testing. Ries emphasizes the importance of testing the value hypothesis first. This involves creating a minimal viable product, MVP, that allows the startup to start the learning process as quickly as possible with minimal resources. Growth hypothesis testing. Once the value hypothesis is validated, and it's clear that customers find the product valuable, the focus shifts to testing the growth hypothesis, how new customers will discover the product or service. The role of MVPs in testing assumptions. Iterative development. The MVP plays a crucial role in the leap phase, serving as the experiment through which the startup tests its leap of faith assumptions. It's about starting small, learning fast, and iterating quickly. Feedback and iteration. Feedback from the MVP tests is used to refine and adjust the assumptions or the product itself. This iterative process helps startups converge on a product that meets market needs. Challenges in the leap phase. Emotional and cognitive biases. Startups face challenges such as confirmation bias, where there's a tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. Ries advises startups to be vigilant against these biases by focusing on data and validated learning. Navigating uncertainty. The initial leap is fraught with uncertainty, not just about the product, but about the market, the business model, and the startup's ability to execute. Startups must navigate this uncertainty without letting it paralyze them. Strategies for success. Build a sustainable business. Beyond just building a product, startups need to validate that they are creating a sustainable business around their vision. This means not only proving that customers will find the product valuable, but also that the business can reach and serve those customers profitably. Continuous validation. The process of testing and validating the core business assumptions is continuous. Even after the initial leap, startups must remain vigilant, ready to iterate on their product and pivot their strategy as they learn more about their customers and market. Chapter 5 of The Lean Startup underscores the importance of the initial leap of faith, urging startups to confront and systematically test the assumptions underlying their visions. By approaching these early decisions with a mindset geared towards learning and validation, startups can navigate the inherent uncertainties of launching a new venture more effectively. This chapter sets the stage for the rigorous, iterative process of building a startup that can find its place in the market and grow into a sustainable business. Chapter 6. Test. This chapter dives into the practical aspects of the lean startup methodology, focusing on how to build a sustainable business model around the minimal viable product, MVP. Eric Ries elaborates on the strategies for testing business hypotheses and the importance of using feedback to refine the product, with the ultimate goal of achieving product-market fit. This chapter is pivotal for understanding how lean startup practices translate into real-world actions that drive a startup towards success. Here's a detailed overview: the MVP and sustainable business. Beyond the MVP. While the MVP is crucial for starting the learning process, this chapter discusses the journey beyond creating an MVP towards establishing a sustainable business model. The MVP serves as the starting point for this journey, providing the initial data and customer feedback necessary for refinement. Focus on product market fit. The overarching goal is to reach product market fit, a state where the product meets the market's needs and demands effectively. Achieving product market fit is critical for the survival and growth of the startup. Testing business hypotheses. These experiments are structured around the build, measure, learn feedback loop. Identifying riskiest hypotheses. Startups are advised to prioritize testing the riskiest aspects of their business model first. These are the assumptions that, if wrong, are most likely to cause the venture to fail. Using feedback to adjust the product. Iterative feedback loop. The process of adjusting the product based on feedback is iterative. Each iteration through the build, measure, learn loop provides new insights, which are then used to make informed adjustments to the product, business model, or both. Qualitative and quantitative feedback. Ries highlights the importance of both qualitative feedback, customer interviews, usability tests, and quantitative data, metrics and analytics, in understanding customer needs and validating hypotheses. Strategies for effective testing. Split testing. One of the key strategies discussed is split testing, A/B testing, where two versions of a product feature are tested with different segments of users to determine which one performs better in terms of predefined metrics. Innovation accounting. To effectively measure progress and decide when to pivot or persevere, Ries introduces the concept of innovation accounting, a framework for measuring the impact of experiments and learning on the startup's key metrics. Challenges in testing. Avoiding vanity metrics. A significant challenge is the temptation to focus on vanity metrics that look impressive but don't actually provide actionable insights. Ries urges startups to focus on actionable metrics that directly reflect the value the product provides to customers. Interpreting feedback correctly. Another challenge is correctly interpreting customer feedback and data. There's a risk of confirmation bias or misinterpreting data to fit pre-existing beliefs. Startups must approach data analysis with an open mind and a willingness to be proven wrong. Achieving product market fit. Indicators of product market fit. Ries discusses how startups can recognize when they are close to or have achieved product-market fit. This includes a high level of customer engagement, growing word of mouth, and increasing demand for the product. Adjusting for market fit. The chapter concludes with strategies for adjusting the product or business model based on the feedback loop to better align with market demands, thus enhancing the chances of achieving product-market fit. Chapter 6 of The Lean Startup provides a detailed roadmap for moving from an MVP to a product that fits the market's needs. By adopting a rigorous, hypothesis-driven approach to testing and incorporating feedback into iterative product development, startups can navigate the uncertainties of the market more effectively. This chapter reinforces the Lean Startup's core tenet that through continuous testing, learning, and adjusting, startups can build sustainable businesses that truly meet their customers' needs. Chapter 7. Measure. This chapter is a critical turning point in The Lean Startup, where Eric Ries introduces the concept of innovation accounting, a framework designed to help startups measure progress, establish milestones, and make informed decisions about their future direction. This chapter tackles the challenge of evaluating success and navigating through the startup process in a more analytical and disciplined way. Here's a detailed exploration of the key themes and insights. The challenge of measuring progress. Traditional metrics fall short. Ries begins by highlighting the inadequacy of traditional accounting metrics in capturing the progress of startups, especially those operating under conditions of extreme uncertainty. Need for a new framework. The unpredictable nature of startups requires a new approach to measurement, one that can accurately reflect the learning and progress towards finding a sustainable business model. Innovation accounting, a new framework. Definition and purpose. Innovation accounting is defined as a method to measure progress in the context of startups. It involves setting up a framework that allows startups to see if their product changes are moving the needle towards a viable business model. 3 core components. Innovation accounting consists of 3 main components: establishing the baseline, measuring where you are right now, tuning the engine, experimenting to improve, and making a decision, pivoting or persevering. Establishing the baseline. Creating a MVP. The first step is to create a minimal viable product, MVP, to establish the current reality of the startup situation. This baseline includes initial metrics that reflect the value customers are gaining from the product. Learning milestones. Ries suggests setting up learning milestones, which are a set of metrics that validate the fundamental assumptions of the business model. Tuning the engine. Continuous experiments. Once the baseline is established, startups should continually run experiments to improve the metrics towards the ideal set during the baseline phase. Pivot or persevere. The outcome of these experiments informs whether a startup should pivot, make a fundamental change to one or more of their business model assumptions, or persevere with their current strategy. Making decisions with innovation accounting. Data-driven decisions. Innovation accounting provides the data needed to make informed decisions about the future direction of the startup. It helps avoid the emotional bias that can cloud judgment. Signaling a pivot. Key metrics that do not improve as expected signal that it might be time to pivot. Innovation accounting helps identify this point more objectively than traditional metrics. Chapter 7 of The Lean Startup sheds light on the importance of accurately measuring progress in startups, where traditional metrics may not capture the full picture. Innovation accounting emerges as a crucial tool for navigating the murky waters of startup development, offering a structured way to learn from experiments, make data-driven decisions, and ultimately determine the most viable path forward for the business. By implementing this framework, startups can more effectively decide when to pivot their strategy or persevere on their current path, greatly increasing their chances of success in the long term. Chapter 8. Pivot or persevere. This chapter is a pivotal section in the Lean Startup that tackles one of the most critical decisions that startups face in their journey. Eric Ries delves into the concept of the pivot, explaining how and when startups should consider making significant changes to their strategy, product, or business model, versus when to stay the course. This decision, often faced multiple times throughout a startup's life, can be the difference between success and failure. Here's a detailed look at the insights from this chapter. Understanding the pivot. Definition. A pivot is defined as a structured course correction designed to test a new fundamental hypothesis about the product, strategy, and engine of growth. It's a conscious, strategic decision to shift direction while keeping one foot in place, grounded in what has been learned so far. The importance of timing. Ries emphasizes the critical importance of timing in the decision to pivot or persevere. Making this decision too early or too late can have significant consequences for the startup's survival and growth. The signs leading to a pivot. Learning as a precursor to pivoting. Continuous learning through the build, measure, learn feedback loop is what informs the pivot decision. When the data shows that the current path is not leading to the desired growth or market fit, a pivot might be necessary. Innovation accounting as a tool. The chapter revisits innovation accounting, illustrating how it helps identify the need for a pivot. If the startup's experiments and metrics do not demonstrate enough progress towards the goals, it may be time to pivot. Types of pivots. Ries outlines several types of pivots, providing a framework for understanding the different ways a startup might change direction. Zoom in. Pivot. Where a single feature becomes the whole product. Zoom out. Pivot. Where the whole product becomes a single feature of a much larger product. Customer segment. Pivot. Changing the target audience while keeping the product essentially the same. Customer need pivot. Recognizing that the problem being solved is not significant enough to the current customer segment and shifting focus to a different problem. Platform pivot. Changing from an application to a platform or vice versa. Business architecture. Pivot. Shifting from a high-margin, low-volume model to a low-margin, high-volume model, or vice versa. Value capture pivotancy. Changing how value is captured, monetization or revenue model. Engine of growth. Pivot. Shifting growth strategies to focus on a different kind of growth engine. Channel pivot. Changing distribution channels or how the product is delivered to customers. Technology. Pivot. Applying new technology to an existing problem. The decision-making process. Validated learning review. Regularly scheduled meetings to discuss learning and decide whether enough progress is being made to persevere or if it's time to pivot. Balancing. Speed and patience. While the lean startup methodology emphasizes speed and agility, Ries also stresses the importance of patience in making the pivot decision. Not every problem indicates the need for a pivot, and sometimes perseverance is necessary to see an experiment through to its conclusion. Embracing the pivot. Pivot as a positive. Ries encourages startups to view pivoting as a positive step, an opportunity to realign with the market and the startup's long-term vision. Pivots are a natural part of the startup process, reflecting a commitment to learning and adapting. Building a sustainable business. Ultimately, the decision to pivot or persevere is about finding the path to building a sustainable business. This involves being honest about what is working, what isn't, and having the courage to change direction when necessary. Chapter 8 of The Lean Startup offers crucial insights into one of the most challenging aspects of running a startup, the decision to pivot or persevere. Through a combination of strategic thinking, continuous learning, and innovation accounting, startups can navigate this decision more effectively, increasing their chances of long-term success and sustainability. By framing pivoting as a strategic tool for adaptation and growth, Ries provides startups with a roadmap for navigating the uncertainties of the market and evolving their businesses in response to validated learning. Chapter 9. Batch. This chapter presents a transformative approach to how startups should manage the development and production of their products. Eric Ries advocates for working in small batches, a concept derived from lean manufacturing principles, applied within the context of startup product development and customer feedback cycles. This chapter contrasts the traditional large batch production methods with the lean approach of continuous deployment and rapid iteration, demonstrating how the latter can significantly improve efficiency and agility. Here's a closer look at the insights and arguments presented. The drawbacks of large batch production: inefficiency and waste. Ries starts by outlining the inherent inefficiencies of large batch production, where products or features are developed in large, comprehensive cycles before being released to customers. This approach often leads to significant waste, as errors are only discovered after a lot of work has been done, requiring extensive rework. Delayed feedback. Large batches delay feedback from customers, as the time between ideation and customer interaction is prolonged. This delay makes it harder for startups to learn and adapt based on customer needs and preferences. The benefits of small batch work. Rapid iteration and feedback. By working in small batches, startups can iterate more rapidly. This allows them to test ideas and hypotheses with customers sooner, leading to quicker learning cycles and the ability to adapt products based on real user feedback. Reduced risk of rework. Small batches reduce the risk and cost of rework because errors or misalignments with customer expectations are identified earlier in the development process. Continuous deployment. Ries discusses the practice of continuous deployment, a software development practice where code changes are automatically tested and deployed to the production environment frequently. This practice is emblematic of the small batch philosophy, enabling real-time feedback and adjustments. Implementing small batch principles. Start small. The chapter advises startups to begin product development with the smallest batch possible. This often means breaking down product features into smaller, independently releasable components that can be tested and refined. Measure and learn. With each small batch release, startups should measure impact and learn from real customer interactions. This cycle of build, measure, learn is accelerated by the small batch approach. Cultural shift. Adopting small batch processes requires a cultural shift within the organization. Teams must embrace agility, continuous learning, and the willingness to adapt based on what the data shows. Challenges and solutions. Overcoming resistance. Transitioning to a small batch approach can be met with resistance, especially in environments accustomed to traditional development cycles. Ries suggests focusing on the benefits of rapid learning and the ability to pivot more easily as persuasive arguments for this shift. Infrastructure and tools. Implementing continuous deployment and managing small batches efficiently may require investments in new tools and technologies. Startups should prioritize these investments as they enable faster learning and adaptation. Chapter 9 of the Lean Startup underscores the strategic advantage of adopting small batch production methods over traditional large batch processes. By embracing the principles of lean manufacturing in the context of startup development cycles, startups can improve their efficiency, agility, and capacity to learn from customers in real time. This chapter provides a compelling argument for the value of quick iterations, continuous feedback, and the ability to pivot swiftly, all of which are enhanced by working in small batches. Chapter 10. Grow. This chapter addresses a fundamental objective for any startup: achieving sustainable growth. Eric Ries explores the dynamics of growth, emphasizing that true, lasting growth stems from creating products that customers love and developing a business model that supports scaling. The chapter categorizes growth into three primary engines: viral, sticky, and paid, and discusses how startups can leverage these mechanisms to drive their growth strategies. Here's a detailed look at the key points and insights from this chapter. The foundation of sustainable growth. Product market fit. Ries reiterates that sustainable growth is only achievable with a product that meets market needs, a concept known as product market fit. Without this, efforts to scale will likely falter. Value creation and capture. Sustainable growth also hinges on the startup's ability to create value for its customers and to capture value back in the form of revenue. This balance is crucial for the long-term viability of the business. The three engines of growth. Ries identifies three primary engines of growth that can drive a startup's expansion. Each engine has distinct characteristics and requires different strategies to be effective. 1. The viral engine of growth. Word of mouth and referrals. This growth engine is powered by customers themselves spreading the word about the product, essentially doing the marketing for the startup. A key metric here is the viral coefficient, which measures how many new customers each existing customer brings in. A viral coefficient greater than 1 means the product will grow exponentially, as each new user brings in more than one additional user. Product integration. Viral growth often requires product features that encourage sharing and referrals, making virality a built-in aspect of the product experience. 2. The sticky engine of growth. Customer retention. The sticky engine focuses on retaining customers over the long term, making them come back repeatedly. High retention rates contribute to growth because the customer base compounds over time as new customers are added. Measure of success. Success metrics for the sticky engine include customer lifetime value, LTV, and churn rate. The goal is to maximize LTV while minimizing churn. Product engagement. Enhancing product engagement and user satisfaction are crucial tactics for driving the sticky engine of growth. 3. The paid engine of growth. Customer acquisition. This engine relies on spending money to acquire customers through advertising, sales teams, or other paid marketing channels. Cost of customer acquisition, CAC, versus lifetime value, LTV. The efficiency of the paid engine is measured by comparing the cost of acquiring a customer, CAC, to the revenue that customer generates over their lifetime, LTV. For sustainable growth, LTV must significantly exceed CAC. Scalability. The scalability of the paid engine depends on finding and maintaining cost-effective acquisition channels, choosing the right engine of growth. Alignment with business model. Startups must choose the engine of growth that best aligns with their business model and market. The choice depends on the nature of the product, the behavior of the target customers, and the economics of the market. Focus. Ries warns against trying to pursue all three engines at once. Focus is essential for effective growth strategy execution. Implementing growth strategies. Experimentation and iteration. Similar to other aspects of the lean startup methodology, growth strategies should be subject to experimentation and iteration. Startups should continuously test different tactics within their chosen engine of growth and adapt based on what works best. Chapter 10 of The Lean Startup shifts the focus towards scaling the startup through sustainable growth strategies. By understanding and effectively leveraging one of the three engines of growth, viral, sticky, or paid, startups can accelerate their growth in a sustainable manner. This growth must be underpinned by a solid product market fit and a business model that balances value creation for customers with value capture for the business. Through diligent focus and ongoing experimentation, startups can navigate the complexities of growth and scale their operations successfully. Chapter 11. Adapt. This chapter delves into the critical ability of startups to remain adaptable in the face of the constant challenges and uncertainties that characterize the startup ecosystem. Eric Ries highlights the significance of learning from mistakes, the necessity for flexibility and strategic direction, and the ways to overcome the challenges associated with scaling a business. Moreover, the chapter provides insights on fostering a sustainable culture of innovation within the organization. Here's a detailed exploration of the chapter's core themes and insights. the imperative of adaptability. Continuous learning. The chapter opens with the assertion that the capacity to learn from experiences and adapt accordingly is crucial for startups. This learning isn't just about improving products, but also involves refining business models, customer acquisition strategies, and internal processes. Embracing failure. Ries emphasizes the importance of viewing mistakes and failures as learning opportunities. An adaptable startup recognizes early when things aren't working and uses these insights to pivot or adjust strategies promptly. Learning from mistakes. Validated learning as a measure. The concept of validated learning is revisited, stressing that startups should measure their progress in terms of what they have learned about how to create a sustainable business. This perspective helps in recognizing and learning from mistakes. Creating a safe environment for failure. Startups need to create an environment where employees feel safe to test new ideas, report on their outcomes honestly, and discuss failures without fear of reprisal. Such an environment is conducive to rapid learning and adaptation. Flexibility in direction. The role of pivot. The pivot emerges again as a critical tool for adaptation, allowing startups to change direction while leveraging the knowledge they have accumulated. Ries discusses the strategic importance of knowing when to pivot, to make significant changes to the business model based on feedback and learning. Balance between vision and adaptation. Maintaining a balance between steadfastness to the startup's vision and the flexibility to adapt its execution is portrayed as a delicate but essential aspect of startup success. Overcoming challenges of scaling. Maintaining agility with growth. As startups grow, maintaining the agility to adapt becomes increasingly challenging. Ries offers strategies for preserving a startup's core adaptability features, such as small teams with autonomy, maintaining short development cycles, and fostering open communication. Innovation at scale. The chapter also discusses the challenge of continuing to innovate as the organization scales. Ries suggests implementing structures and processes that encourage innovation across all levels of the organization. Building a culture of innovation. Principles over processes. A sustainable culture of innovation is built on principles rather than rigid processes. Ries advocates for defining clear principles that guide behavior and decision-making within the startup. Empowerment and ownership. Empowering teams by giving them ownership of their work and the autonomy to experiment is highlighted as a key factor in fostering an innovative culture. Continuous learning and improvement. Establishing mechanisms for continuous learning, such as regular retrospectives where teams reflect on what worked, what didn't, and how to improve, is crucial for sustaining innovation. Chapter 11 of The Lean Startup argues convincingly for the essential nature of adaptability in the startup world. By embedding a culture that values learning from mistakes, embraces flexibility, and maintains its innovative edge. Even as it scales, startups can navigate the tumultuous waters of entrepreneurship. Ries articulates how building a sustainable culture of innovation is not just about adopting new tools or technologies, but about how teams think, make decisions, and respond to challenges. This chapter offers valuable guidance on transforming adaptability from a mere buzzword into a tangible asset that drives startup growth and success. Chapter 12. Innovate. This chapter serves as the culminating discussion in The Lean Startup, where Eric Ries elaborates on the concept of transforming an organization into an innovation factory. This transformation involves deeply embedding lean startup principles into the fabric of the organization to cultivate an enduring environment of continuous innovation and learning. Here's a closer exploration of the key themes and actionable insights presented in this concluding chapter. Concept of an innovation factory. Definition and goal. An innovation factory is defined as an organizational ecosystem that consistently generates new value through a structured process of experimentation, learning, and iterative development. The goal is to make innovation a continuous, sustainable process, rather than sporadic bursts of insight. Institutionalizing lean principles. Ries emphasizes the importance of embedding lean startup principles, such as the build, measure, learn loop, validated learning, and the agile response to feedback, into every level of the organization. Fostering a continuous innovation environment. Culture of experimentation. Central to the innovation factory is creating a culture where experimentation is encouraged, and failure is seen as an opportunity for learning. This involves empowering employees to test their hypotheses and take calculated risks. Structural support. The organization must provide the necessary structures and resources to support continuous innovation. This includes allocating time for employees to work on innovative projects, providing access to necessary tools and data, and establishing clear metrics for success. Institutionalizing lean startup principles. From top to bottom. For lean startup principles to be effectively institutionalized, they must be embraced at all levels of the organization, from senior leadership to frontline employees. Leadership must lead by example, demonstrating a commitment to these principles in decision-making and strategic planning. Integration into processes. Lean principles should be integrated into the organization's standard operating procedures, including product development, marketing, and customer engagement strategies. This ensures that the approach to innovation is consistent and embedded in the organization's DNA. Challenges to building an innovation factory. Overcoming resistance. One of the significant challenges in building an innovation factory is overcoming resistance to change, especially in more established organizations with entrenched ways of doing things. Ries suggests a strategic approach to change management, highlighting the benefits of lean methodologies in achieving business objectives. Maintaining momentum. Another challenge is ensuring the ongoing momentum of innovation initiatives. This requires continuous education, reinforcement of lean startup principles, and celebrating successes to keep the innovative spirit alive. Measuring success in an innovation factory. Innovation metrics. Success in an innovation factory is measured not just by traditional business metrics like revenue and profit, but also by innovation-specific metrics, such as the number of experiments conducted, the rate of learning, and the speed of iteration. Long-term focus. While short-term wins are important, the true measure of success is the long-term impact on the organization's ability to innovate and adapt. This includes developing new products, entering new markets, and sustaining competitive advantage. In Chapter 12 of The Lean Startup, Eric Ries presents a compelling vision for turning organizations into powerhouses of continuous innovation. By institutionalizing lean startup principles, organizations can create an innovation factory, a dynamic environment where continuous learning, experimentation, and adaptation are part of the everyday culture. This chapter not only concludes the book but also serves as a call to action for companies to embrace change and innovation as their core strategy for long-term success and sustainability in an ever-evolving marketplace. Eric Ries's The Lean Startup offers invaluable guidance on how to steer a startup, adapt until you find a viable business model, and how to grow the business with maximum acceleration. It's a must-read for entrepreneurs and business leaders looking to create and manage successful startups in today's fast-paced world. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Click subscribe and hit the bell to be the first to enjoy our upcoming audiobooks. Together, let's continue this amazing journey through stories and tales.